Good morning, everyone. Welcome to American Legion Travis L. Williams, Post 65. My name is Ron Williams. I'm the president and CEO of the Arizona Foundation. Happy to be here and emceeing this program. There's so much power in this room. There's so much legacy in this room. If we started calling everyone's name off, we'd be here a minute or two. So with that, again, welcome to today's program. History of South Phoenix Brunch, today, Monday, February 20th, 2023. We're going to go ahead and get our program started with an invocation from Pastor Aubrey Barnwell with First New Life Church. If you could please welcome him to the podium. Thank you. Yeah, he's also chairperson of the African American Clergy of Arizona. Welcome.
Thank you. African American Christian clergy. Let us pray. Lord, we thank you for this opportunity you've given us to gather here. We've gathered here to reflect over the history of South Phoenix, South Mountain Village. We thank you, oh God, for the history that we have, the legacies that have gone before us. Thank you for the assets and all that is valued here in South Phoenix. And Lord, we pray now as we reflect and as we hear and understand what has taken place. Lord, help us to remember that with all this value, there were also challenges and difficulties that we've overcome. And Father, we realize that we're not at the end. We're still working. We're still pressing forward. And we thank you for those who have committed and have continued to seed and to water and to bring about the increase that is necessary for this community to thrive. And so, Lord, we ask for your blessings. Even now, God, we pray for open minds and hearts, and Father, that we be able to reflect and understand what our charge is, what our responsibilities are as we continue to move forward. Thank you, oh God, for this gathering and for all of those who sponsor. We thank you for their willingness to sponsor this. And we ask, God, in the name of Jesus, that all of this take place. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Barnwell. And if you know anything about the Barnwell name, you know there's history. If we can please have everyone please stand for the national anthem, remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance by our commander, SAL Commander Dennis Prince. Remove your headgear if you have so. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave? Oh, the land of the free and the home of the brave. Thank you. SAL Commander Dennis Prince.
Good morning. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Please be seated. All right, next I get to introduce a gentleman who is a visionary. He is a Desert Storm era Army veteran. He is a humanitarian, one of our top leaders in the Valley of the Sun. I won't start mentioning all of the awards. We'd be here a minute. But I do want to say he's a co-founder of the Arizona Foundation and is with us today. If you can please help me welcome Mr. Alan A.P. Powell.
I just want to thank everybody for coming today. I know you could be anywhere on this President's Day on your Monday. We appreciate you coming out today. There's a few people I want to recognize that's been special to this post. Starting with Cody's dad, who donated this post over 50 years ago. Yes. If you can look back on the wall, he's a pioneer of South Phoenix. Everybody knows everything in South Phoenix pretty much named after him. You know what I'm saying? So if you ride to South Phoenix, you know, sometimes I think Cody thinks he's his daddy. But now his dad was a pioneer, left this place. And then after he left this place, I want to give a special shout out to a couple people. My buddy right here, the president of APS, Jeff is, he's been instrumental. When Mr. Hamilton introduced me to Jeff, Jeff's like, hey, this place has got a lot of legacy. What can I do to step up? Mr. Hamilton nudged him and I pushed him. And Jeff's like, hey, man, I didn't know I was going to get in this deep, but since we started, let's keep it going. So this is what you see today based off of Jeff and Miguel and Jeff's staff and everybody else with APS family, make sure this place is what it is today. So we just want to thank you again, Jeff, for all you do and continue to do. I want to give a special shout out to our city manager, Jeff Barton, because when we was doing all this stuff, Jeff wasn't city manager yet, but he was the guy we called on because he's one of the guys that look like us downtown. And and Jeff was like, hey, man, what y'all got going on? And it was complex, so Jeff pushed to help us get everything we needed from the city. I want to thank you again, our new city manager, Jeff Barton. And also, I would be remiss if we have some what I call community. Every day you get people to stand or the dignitaries, but we have community dignitaries. Mr. Dean, who's been on the front line for years with the Urban League. Also, we have both NAAC presidents here, Kiana Sears, who's here from the East Valley. Also, my friend, Dr. Harden, it's just been very special. And also Kesha Hassan, who's been with us and supported us too, who's now Dr. Hassan. So thank you for all that you do. And I just want to say thank you to these people because they've been very instrumental. And then I want to give a shout out to our new police chief who used to chase me when I was a kid. And Chief Mike Sullivan, who is our now police. Stand up, Chief. Chief is a good man, our new police chief. He lost a lot of weight chasing me in the projects in Louisville when we was young. But I appreciate you, Chief, being our new police chief. And then also he's got two gentlemen who's been instrumental in everything in South Phoenix who actually recently got promoted, which is Chief Gamage. Would you stand, Chief? Every time I've ever asked something from this post, everything from Baby Shark, Chief was out there with us. And also Nick, would you stand, who is my guy Nick, who is now Assistant Chief, City of Phoenix, who DePonzio, who's also, anytime we've ever asked anything at this post, they've been up front, and never veered and make sure that we needed what we had. So I just appreciate you, gentlemen. And then we got some stakeholders in here that a lot of people may not know, but they're very instrumental in this community. One of my good friends is Rachel Mitchell, who's our new Maricopa County prosecutor, who I've had long talks with about being fair and equitable, and she says she's here to listen, and she's if you want to go, if you got something to say to her, speak to her. She's open arms to have that conversation. And also I see Veda Manager, who is one of our pioneers in this city, who's also supported us from the Helios Foundation. Continue. And then we got even our NFL football legend. If he'll stand, he knows what I'm talking about. Steve Jordan, yes. The father of Cam Jordan, who grew up right around here in South Phoenix and went to South. So to him to come back down here on his Monday to come down and support us, I really appreciate that. And if I left anybody out, I apologize. But what I just want to say is this post means a lot to me. I had conversations when I first got involved with Cody, and because I wanted his blessing because of his father. And Cody said, hey, man, just keep doing what you're doing. Everybody in might like it because at one time people thought this was a community nightclub, and now is a veteran post what it's supposed to stand for. And that's when you see these pillars on the wall with Dennis Prince is like, that's what he's all about, these pillars. And then I would be remiss if I didn't thank my commander, Jarvis Reddick, and our executive board, who's been on the front line with me everywhere. And then I got to give my shout out to Chief Glover, who's our now new director of DPS, who's been with us on the bridge programs. He's from LA. He's making his name Colonel Glover now. I appreciate that, Colonel. Appreciate everything you're doing. And I want to give a shout out to my main man, AJ, my son, Junior, and his mom, Tasia, who's been very supportive of me in this community, who grew up around the corner, and my daughter, Aaliyah, who now is a new employee at the city of Phoenix, who's from Louisville, Kentucky also. So with that said, and I want to thank our board, Aaron Burr. I want to thank all the gentlemen, Ron, Roshandra, and Heath, who makes everything happen for us, and Forbes. I just want to thank all of y'all for what y'all do, and I hope y'all enjoy this program. Thank you for coming to the community today, and let's have a good time, and let's get these efforts away. Mike, let's get it going. Thanks. Thank you, Ron. God bless y'all. God bless America.
Yeah, it's always tough when you have a lot of influential community leaders in the room and you forget somebody, but we'd be remiss if we didn't do our best to try to recognize all the great people in this room. Next, we'd like to move forward and provide some welcoming remarks from Council Member Carlos Garcia, who's with the City of Phoenix District 8. If you could please welcome our City Council Member Carlos Garcia.
First of all, I just want to, AP's been through a lot in the last 18 months, and just know we're here with you, brother. I know it's tough. No one ever wants to go through the things you went through, so just appreciate that you're still putting in the work even though you're going through all that, so thank you. This is an important gathering. I think it's important for us to understand the history. It's important for us to understand who gets to decide for South Phoenix. Living down the street on 16th Street and Southern, raising my son Chiman, my daughter Yaretsi, my wonderful wife Alexis also here joining me. I'm proud to be down here. I'm proud to do the things that we've done in the last 3.5 years. And I'm excited to make sure that we're talking about and protecting and encouraging Black spaces and Black legacy. We've been working really hard on 24th Street and Broadway. We want to make that what it once was. We want to make sure that it has the representation, it has the cultural validity that it deserves. And so we're moving forward on that project. We're moving forward supporting some of the growth that's happening here. Our city manager's, here nodding his head, super proud of the decision we made. What is it, 1.5 years now? And Jeff's really centered our city, really made sure that we're going in a direction that is taking care of the people that have been for a long time ignored. So I want to appreciate y'all, appreciate the space, appreciate the history and the work that's been put in by the panelists and the Heroes Ono Foundation and obviously the Post. So thank you all so much. Enjoy the day. Looking forward to the conversation.
All right. So as the program goes, as we start to recognize some people in here that we haven't acknowledged, we will continue to do so. Donna Williams with 100 Black Women of Arizona. Give her, stand up and wave it. She like, don't make me stand up. Thank you, Donna. All right. Next on our agenda, we have remarks from Miss Kesha Hodge Washington. If you could please welcome Kesha Hodge Washington to the podium.
Good morning, good morning. I will be real quick. Again, I wanted to say thank you to the American Post for having us here. Thank you, AP in Arizona. Ron, you're doing a great job as usual. You guys have always been instrumental in the community. I'm honored to be in the same space with those that have come before us. Thank you, Mary Rose Wilcox. Thank you, Cody Williams. Thank you, Art Hamilton. Thank you, Mike Johnson. You guys have sewed into this communities in ways that we're still seeing the effects of it. We still realize we have some ways to go, but I think together we can make that progress. So I'm just honored to be here. I thank you guys for the time and the opportunity to stand before you. And I say I look forward to hearing the remarks from our leaders. And as we counter our past and we consider where we are in our present and where we look towards where we're going in the future. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Hodge, Washington. To set the stage for our panelists, we got legends on the stage. To set the stage, we're going to bring up soon-to-be Dr. H.B., Mr. Harold Branch. He is the creator of the world-renowned home-based poetry. HB, if you could come on up this way. He's going to set the stage with a new poem, a new writing he just completed, and he's going to share that with us. Let's welcome him to the podium.
When we talk about Black history, and we talk about who we are as a people, when we were ostracized, when we was punished for talking, we still had art. And it was through the art that the truth came. And it was through the art that the messages showed up. And it was through the art that we were able to strategically move as necessary. And that connection to the art has not changed. And this poem is actually another one. I wish I just wrote it. Wrote it while in school. And like so many poems, it still stands true, even though it's over 20 years old. Oh, wow. I had to make sure I remembered it. That's where it was. But the one thing I know about my people is that no matter all the effort, we refuse to die. Nothing else. No matter how we're here, we're not going nowhere, regardless the efforts. Why do you want me to die? Why do you want to kill off my kind? You look at me and you see no fear in my eyes. All you see is a Black man with an independent mind. If it was up to you, how much time would I have left? How long before I take my last breath? Would you even give it a second thought before you voted to cause my entire generation's death? The world is still trying to get to me, pump negativity to me mentally. Got people that look just like me looking right at me like they're looking right through me because they don't speak, even though I look them dead in the eyes. But it takes a strong brother to survive. It takes a strong brother to stay alive. And even though the world is trying to kill me, it is not an option to die. I do not know how to lie down and give up my life. My people have already had too many casualties, but it's gonna take more than drugs, guns, and police brutality to get rid of me. The pain I endure, the pain we endure, makes us stronger. From the plantations to the projects, slave ships to tenements, there isn't a fire in existence more powerful than the fire of my spirit. We are bigger than your drug epidemic. We are bigger than your commercial gang menace. We are bigger than your lifelong prison sentence. And with God as my savior and my witness, the extent of my people's future is limitless. Because we are strong enough to survive. We are strong enough to stay alive. And even though the world would try to kill us, it is not an option to die. The world does not have what it takes to destroy my soul. Eyes of brown diamond, skin of tan gold. Live life fearless, throw Black picnics in any city's no nigga zone. Doing rock sales, I live life alone. Listening to block tales of brothers and sisters who didn't live to be grown. Would have turned to an older Black male like my father, but a lot of times, he was gone. And I'm still going on. I'm still standing strong. I'm a Black king standing before your eyes, and my patience is deep and my stamina is long. So the world can't make enough guns for me to bust, enough drugs for me to puff, enough gangs for me to rush, or enough diseases for my lust. Because through all this, success is still a must. And our willpower is just too much to let us die. my people throughout history, globally, have exemplified that we are strong enough to survive. We are strong enough to stay alive. And even though the world would try to kill us, it would never be an option for us to lay down and die.
Thank you, Mr. Harold Branch. Complete, he is in the midst of his dissertation as we speak. I can't wait to call him Dr. Harold Branch. Get it done, my brother, get it done. And both AP and Aaron and I, we're just hearing that for the first time. And he's been on the road with us during our bridge forums throughout Arizona and across the country. And he's been bringing the heat, and we're proud of him and excited for him to finish that PhD. All right, now we're gonna move to our panel of distinguished guests. But before we do that, I'm gonna bring up our moderator for this session, the president of the Greater Phoenix Urban League Young Professionals. She has done a great job, doing an outstanding job in her role. She did a great job of leading our Arizona congregation up to DC for the Congressional Black Caucus. So if you could please welcome our moderator, Miss Ashley Atkins, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Ron. Just a special thank you to AP, to American Legion, and to Arizona. I don't know if you knew this about me, but I actually grew up in South Phoenix off of 16th Street and Baseline. My grandma was on 16th Street and Rozier, so this is a special place to me, and I'm just so happy to be here amongst legacy within the room for that. As Ron mentioned, I'm the president of the Greater Phoenix Urban League Young Professionals, and I wanted to give a special recognition to those that come before me, and we wouldn't be here without you, and that would be from the Urban League, the Greater Phoenix Urban League, Mr. Dean. So thank you so much for being here. We appreciate that as well. Thank you. All right, before we get started, I would love our distinguished panel to introduce themselves, and we'll get right into the questions for our Black History Month and to learn a little bit more about South Phoenix and some of the efforts that we've been doing within that effort. So, Miss Mary, if you can go first.
Hello, everybody. I'm Mary Rose Wilcox, and I'm really, really glad to be here. Prince reminded me 35 years ago I was here for Black History Month. And Prince, I'm really glad to be back. Before I go on, I want to introduce two people who are really, really supportive of me. One, almost all my life, and the other, I'm just so proud of. My husband, Earl Wilcox, a former state representative. And our oldest grandson, Byron Rhymes, who's a constable. He just left. Oh, he just stepped out. But he just is a constable in the West Phoenix area, so he's following the traditions. I'll just give a brief summary, and I guess we're going to get into the questions after that. I was very fortunate to have come down to the South Phoenix area in the late 60s, early 70s, and I met my husband, Earl Wilcox, who's from Grant Park, born and raised there, and we entered the movement for Black-Brown community in deciding that we were going to go into politics because we needed to change the message that came from the tables that have made such heavy decisions, the city council, state representatives, county board of supervisors. So Earl and I have been married 52 years, and I have been on the city council, I have been on the board of supervisors, and right now, currently, I was the chairman of the Valley Wise Health, which is a former county hospital system. So I've been around a lot. I feel like an OG up here, you know. I know everybody says legacy. But there are so many things that we could talk about. South Phoenix, we've seen it grow and grow. When I first got on city council, I couldn't believe how excited I was, and I had the honor and pleasure of serving with Calvin C. Good, who many of you know, and I couldn't have had a better mentor. Calvin taught me that you have to pay attention to the whole community. You have to come to your community, and you have to know what it stands for and what it wants, and you have to unite your community. So we formed a Black-Brown coalition that just didn't stop. And when we had issues, we attacked the city council and said, we need budget changes, we need more money to come in to South Phoenix and the central inner city. We need to make changes. And Calvin and I knew we had to do them together or it wouldn't work. Later in life, I became involved in a lot of civil rights activity. I was very proud to be in the city council when we passed the Martin Luther King Day, years before the state did. And we had our first march in driving rain. I think George and Jean Blue was here, they would remember it. But we had to come together and say, we are going to honor our past and we have to work for our future. And at that time, we worked very hard to make sure that the budget was fair to the South Phoenix and Central Phoenix areas, that we had programs that could address our youth. There were hard times, and I know the new police chief is here and I welcome you. And we in the past have worked hand in hand with police. There's a lot more work to do. The Civilian Review Board now can move forward. Chris Mace has given the go-ahead, and we need to work with you hand in hand on that because our community is still under duress, and we know that police can be our friends, and we just need to show that we will work together. I have 5 interracial grandchildren, and they're all boys, and every day I get very, very worried about them in the community. So I want to make sure that justice is fair throughout this community, that when things happen, we can address them and not be worried about offending anybody, but reach out and say, police chief, let's work together. We need to make sure that our children are protected, our health is protected, our economy is protected, and we can move forward. I know that's kind of a long speech, but I'll answer more questions. But I'm very, very proud to have been a member of my elected offices, but more proud to be a friend, an ally, and a coalition builder with the Black-Brown community. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Wilcox. And now we have Judge Cody Williams, the City of Phoenix former councilman.
Good morning. She said, my name is Cody Williams. I do have a question I need to ask before we get started. Has anyone been in Arizona since 1929? In Phoenix, anywhere in 1929? Okay. The reason I ask that question is because at the age of 4, my grandfather from East Texas moved my 4-year-old father and my 15-year-old uncle to Phoenix on their way to California, themingly. The Depression was in place, a lot of things were changing, and they got here and discovered that, hey, look, this was wide open too. There were a lot of things that we could do. And as you can imagine, South Phoenix was not very, very south. It was always existed up north of South Mountain. My grandfather bought a piece of property on Tonto and 11th Avenue, built a house, brought aunts and uncles and others down to Phoenix. And the beginning of my family's existence in this community started in 1929. I say that to say that as long as I have been alive, that has been a continuous reality for all of those years. Now, if anybody here, I know I got a chess professional here, but if you could subtract 2023 from 1929, you can imagine the amount of time and energy and money and resources that my family has brought to this South Phoenix community. And so, no, don't start clapping yet. I may mess up in a minute. I may come up with something crazy. You know, I'm being filmed over here, so I just needed to remind myself. But the one thing that I was raised to understand is that this was always the most diverse community within the valley, not just the city. Yes, we had a mayor, black mayor in Chandler. We had some African Americans. My mother grew up in Mesa. But when it came down to white, black, Hispanic, and even Asian, because of the flower gardens and the groves and all of the things that were happening agriculturally, we had the most diverse community in the state of Arizona. And I grew up in it. And I understood that that was the way it had to be once I grew up and understood that not every community was like this. And when we did exchange students from Julian School and went to North Phoenix campus and recognized that I was, they had no black children to chaperone us, while we had black and Hispanic children, and they came and visited us, and whether they were scared or not, they enjoyed themselves too. And so the connection between what this community has always been and what it has to be now is the same. It has to look the way it's always looked. It has to be something that is biracial, is community racial, it is clean, and it's growing and it's manifests itself. When I was in the 5th grade, I wrote a letter to our state representatives, Representative Thompson and Representative Hamilton. And within 30 days, one day walking through the door was this clean, sharply dressed African-American man, Art Hamilton, standing in my 5th grade classroom. They were so excited at the school that they brought other kids into the classroom to hear him speak. And did he not know at the time, I'm sure he didn't, that the seed he planted in me, even though I had a father that was doing all of these, even though I had George Brooks as my pastor over Southminster Presbyterian, even though my Uncle Bernard Black was right down the street as well, all of this reality kind of starts with knowing that there was an African American in leadership that I could look up to. And I have always looked up to Art Hamilton. Little did I know that one day I'd be running for city council. And at that time, it was Calvin Good and Mary Rose Wilcox who supported my campaign, of course, along with Art and a number of other members of our community. And when it was my turn to pass the torch, Mike Johnson approached me. We sat in my office, and he told me he wanted to be city councilman. And we did all we could do to make that happen. And Mike was just as successful as everybody else. And one day, when I was Black Chamber president, sitting in my office, we're doing a retreat. I get a call one morning from Mary Rose Wilcox, and she says, I just appointed you to be the Justice of the Peace for the South Mountain Justice. I'm saying, what? I just said that call me if you needed me, but she called the next morning. Clovis left my house at 8 p.m. on Sunday night, at 8 a.m. on Monday morning. She was like, and we're having a reception over here at our restaurant. We're going to swear you in, and we're going to have everybody. And I said, but what the hell does the Justice of the Peace do? Then she told me, right, no, which never worked. But then she told me how much money they made, and I was there, everything was cool. It was all good at that. So 15 and a half years later, after 24 years of serving as an elected official and 30 years of being in this community, I know that there's nowhere in this earth that I'd rather be. And that when this facility, which my father, as was already stated, they built this. They built the houses. From Rozier Road to 16th Street, Broadway to 24th Street. They had to build these houses because they would not sell houses to Black and Hispanic servicemen primarily. Those were the individuals that once they came back, they had the GI Bill, and yes, they could go to college, but they couldn't buy a house. And so my uncle and my father went to the VA VA says, hey, look, we can't make people, and this guy, mind you, is 55, 1950s. We can't make people, white people, sell you houses in Scottsdale, Mesa, Tempe, even in South Phoenix. But if you build your own, we will honor the VA bill, and we will make sure that those servicemen and women who come back from the war have a place to live. And not only did military individuals buy Williams and Jones houses, there were doctors and lawyers and teachers and preachers that all lived in this community, whether it was on 16th Street and Baseline, where I grew up on 21st and Rosia, Steve's over here on Corona. I could tell you a whole lot of us that grew up here. But then I also drive through the community today and I don't recognize. And so the most important thing for me, as I address this day and as you ask questions, is how do we make sure that those who are representing us, whether by name, whether by office, whether by responsibility, or still old enough to remember stuff 60 years ago, how we connect to those young people who will be leading us in the future. Because that's where the handoff is. It can't be 62 and 25. It's got to be 25 and 35 and 45 and 55 and 65 and 75. You have to know me and I have to know you. I can't continue. I have a lot of life left in me and I expect to be very active over the next several decades. But I can't do anything if you don't let me help you. If you don't ask me to be a part of that conversation. I haven't been invited to 24th and Broadway's activities yet, and I set that, yeah, they got kids in here. I set that up. I sat on a bulldozer and tore down Rainbow Market. And for those of you who understood that that was the most notorious place in the state of Arizona and got national press all the time. But I was able to get our city to tear that down so people could come down. And we've spent billions, not millions, billions of dollars south of the river and north of the mountain. So with you being here, it says there's a chance. With us being here, I know it's saying we all want to work together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Judge Williams. And next we have Art Hamilton, principal of the Art Hamilton Group and former representative and former minority leader. I'll have him introduce himself.
Thank you. I am proud to be here on President's Day. I'm also proud to be sitting next to a former member of the Phoenix Police Department with two police gentlemen out there and the city manager and the prosecuting attorney. And the prosecuting attorney. Yep. And there are no warrants or warrants out for me today. Don't bother to check. I am the senior member of this delegation, both by experience and just by age. I tell people all the time, all of the things that used to work no longer work, and what still work hurts. So you know you've had a few birthdays. When I first came to the community, I'm a native son of Arizona, Phoenix. But my first experience on this road, on Broadway, at 36th Street, was to where we went after church service at 11th Avenue and Tonto to visit my Uncle DeWitt's farm, which was down on 36th Street. Always there with his house, a couple other houses like it, and we had pigs and chickens in the whole 9 yards, because it was a farm, because we were in the county. Because at that point, the city had not seen fit to bring us into the city. But we're in now, of course. It's a great community. We've done incredible things. There are folks here who represent certainly so much of the past of this community, certainly the present of this community, and with Carlos and Kesha, the future of this community. I believe the only thing at the end of the day that will be remembered is not how much we made, though if you're making some, please send some my way. The place is all that we got to visit, but what will be remembered more than anything else, what we left behind, what we gave while we were here, and the things that we dedicated and committed ourselves to. I am simply proud to be a part of this community. I basically grew up on the west side because Cody and Mike and all the folks had standards and wouldn't let me live south of the salt. But this community has always been not only in my heart, but in the district I served. I believe it is a place that has generated so much power and goodness for the Phoenix area. And I'm simply proud to still be here and still be able to stand up, take nourishment, and have all the coffee I can drink. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, Mr. Michael E. Johnson, board member of Arizona Board of Executive Clemency and former councilman.
Thank you. My name is Mike Johnson. I'm actually an Arizona native, born here in Phoenix. For those who've been here a long time, they know where the old Maricopa County Hospital was over there on Durango. Turned out to be now jailhouse, juvenile center there, but I was actually born there. My parents moved, my mother did. I'm the youngest of 6 kids. My mother moved to Los Angeles when I was in about the 3rd grade. I came back out here in the early 70s, and I've been out here ever since. I've had the opportunity to be blessed to have raised my 3 kids here. That's my heart, they're my life. I really think many times that had it not been for my kids, I don't know where I would be at now. I have a daughter, my son, he's went to DeVry, graduated from DeVry, went in the military, did 21 plus years in the military, he's out, and now he's the manager, security manager of 3 hospitals here. My oldest girl, she graduated from ASU, got a doctor's degree in psychology from ASU. She happened to be one of those ones when President Obama, ASU was the first place he gave the commencement speech, and she was one of the ones who actually got presented her doctor's degree by President Obama, which would always be a historical event for her. My youngest girl graduated from ASU, then went to Grand Canyon Community College and GCU and got her master's degree. And so I always talk about my kids because I'm so blessed to have that opportunity. And, you know, my kids, I didn't get to finish college because I worked 3 jobs coming up and raised my kids to make sure that they were able to get the education to understand what it's all about, which really helped me because I retired from the City of Phoenix Police Department as a homicide investigator, but I'm so proud of the Phoenix Police Department. The time that I worked there, I worked the Boys Club, I worked IG Homes Boys Club, I worked Key Keffer Boys Club. We didn't have the officers in the school, but I was one of the first officers we did when we were in the elementary school with the Officer Friendly program. And amazingly, I have adults still come up to me and bring their kids. They don't even know my name. Oh, they come up and say, "This is Officer Friendly. He was the one that was keeping us right in school." You know, that we actually had that opportunity. So I'm blessed to have done that. I retired from the police department. I actually was a businessman. I had a security investigation company, had about 70 people that were working at the airport. So it taught me a lot about small businesses and how small businesses run, what difficulties that they actually have with trying to have a small business and making sure that they're able to operate there. So I served on the city council for 12 years, 3 consecutive terms. That's the term limit. Served 2 terms as vice mayor while I was actually on the city council. Had the opportunity to lead the redevelopment of the downtown area and get that started, in which we see that it's really thriving. Had the opportunity to be out here in South Phoenix, to see South Phoenix grow and be a part of helping it grow, to stand on Cody's back when he went out and brought all the housing development here to South Phoenix, to really bring the business development and start working on different ends. So I consider myself just to be blessed, not special, not above, not better than anyone else, but God gave me the opportunity to be a servant, to be able to serve the people, and I continue to still be that servant and serve the people. I now serve on the Executive Clemency Board, which is like the Pardon and Parole Board. So I've been blessed to be able to do that, and I continue to stay active and stay involved in the community. I have a nonprofit that me and my partner Beatrice started up, Sankofa Humanitarian Project, that we're working on. One of our goals, and our big goal, this is our big goal, is to work with young adults who just aged out of foster care, or young adults who've been in the juvenile system and getting out. We're starting some services to build a home, give them some housing, give them some counseling, social service work, which they actually need. There are a lot of good young people out there that just does not have that family support or support to really continue and make their lives better. So again, I'm just blessed. I thank my pastor, Pastor Ivory, who's here. I came into New Life Baptist Church under his father, Pastor Barnwell, Henry Barneswell. I came in under him, and I would tell you that I've been so blessed just to be able to do that. So I'm looking forward to answering any questions and what contributions that we've actually had the opportunity to make to just build South Phoenix and the city of Phoenix, because what we do for South Phoenix, we do for the entire city. It benefits us all.
Great. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for all of the introductions. So we are going to go ahead and dive right into the questions and to learn a little bit more as far as why you got involved here in South Phoenix and how you grew up. So the very first question I have for you is, what inspired you to become involved in our community? And what have been some of the most rewarding experiences you have had within your career? And I'll start with you, Mary.
Well, I originally was from Superior, Arizona, and I grew up in the time of miners forming unions because of the inequities in the mine. When I was growing up, we had no health insurance. Our dads didn't have pensions. There was very, very little benefits. And I grew up, and it was a very tumultuous time, but I grew up knowing that when you organize and when you join with other people, you can achieve success. The strikes happened, and we all got benefits. Our fathers had better working environments, and it worked. And when I came down to ASU in the late 60s, I was just appalled at the racism that I saw there. I remember living in a dorm, and they put the Chicanas and blacks in one room, 3 of us in a dorm, and everybody else was white. And I said, oh my gosh, this is crazy. You know, not that I didn't want to be with them, but it was wrong. And we basically started working for civil rights with the farm worker movement in my college days. And then I moved into the inner city, met my husband who was running Barrio Youth Program. And both of us looked at each other and said, we've been very lucky. Both of us have been blessed that we got to go to college. Earl went to Grand Canyon, I went to ASU. So we need to give back. So when we married, it was a marriage of love, but it was also a marriage of working together and committing to helping our community. And that's what we've done the last 52 years. Earl entered politics because we felt that we needed to make changes, and I was the first Latina elected to the city council in 1982 when the city went from a district to, from an at-large to a district system. I was the first Latina elected there, and I knew then that we needed to have more of us at the table. We needed to coalesce. I told you Calvin C. Good was my mentor. And we both knew that in order for our community to move forward and injustices to be rightened, we needed to make sure that the black brown community worked together, and that's what we did. In the time I was in the Board of Supervisors, we had a horrendous sheriff, and Sheriff Joe Arpaio, and he was treating everybody in our community, no matter what your color, terrible. So we banded together and we moved forward. And again, through the lessons I had learned of coming together, working together, organizing, and putting together an agenda that people can understand, learning, particularly through politics, how to do budgets, how to transfer money, how to make sure that money was going the right place. That's what you needed to do. And that commitment has stayed with me my lifetime. Right now I run a restaurant, we run a little park, and I told you I was on the Valleywise. And I think when you are blessed the way we were with an education, with the ability to, you know, just speak and help your community, you need to stay committed. And so that's what I've tried to do. And that organizing has stayed with me all my life.
Answer that question. Okay. I'm going to try to get through all the questions, and I'm going to, for you. He's like, I'm just here. Oh, good stuff, good stuff. Well, due to you knowing.
Got a bottle of water I could get?
Little
cups weren't working.
Absolutely.
Right,
so you know all the history of Arizona and a long history with your family and everything. So I wanted you to speak a little bit more on that as far as how do you think the history of South Phoenix Black community has influenced its present day culture and dynamics?
Wow, that's a very good question in the sense that there have always been black people in Arizona. Even though the war that created Arizona, that ended with the treaty that created us in 1912 is when our history on Valentine's Day. It changed the lines. We went from one day on the 13th it was Mexico, and on the 14th it was Arizona and New Mexico. And there were Buffalo Soldiers, there were African Americans who had come here from slavery times. There were people who had migrated on their way to California, and they settled here. And there is historical documentation of the African Americans who lived and settled here all the way back to the 1800s. And so the involvement throughout that process of what might be considered non-organized efforts to give equality and racial equality and the access to the same things was just as slow as everywhere else. Now, we weren't like the South. You know, yeah, there were some people who called themselves members of the Ku Klux Klan, and there were some other folks, but we didn't have that same Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee kind of environment. But we did have leaders that were always focused on this bigger picture. My father sat at we used to have a Woolworths, for those of you who didn't know, and that Woolworths had counters. And there were times when African Americans did sit-ins at the Woolworths counters in direct relationship to the efforts that were happening nationally. So that they were some of the first individuals. You know, how many of you know of the name James Brown, entertainer? When he speaks of funky, funky Broadway, he's talking about here. That's the Broadway, not New York Broadway. This is the Phoenix Broadway, because he spent a lot of times in black folks' houses because he couldn't stay in hotels. And these were the only places where black folks had the size of houses and people. And so his knowledge and the people who came to Phoenix and who saw that understood that this state, this city, this community that you call South in Phoenix had a heart, and it had a life, and it had an effort. And you started to see African Americans becoming police officers and firefighters, and those were role model jobs. You had tons of some of the most boisterous, articulate, religious minds. Like I had mentioned, you've heard about Reverend Barnwell call me at 6 o'clock in the morning every day. Don't matter what it was. Why was that, Arby? Why was he up at 6 o'clock? That was a late call. That was a late call if he called you at 6 o'clock. I'm trying to figure it out, but I was in the bed, hey, Rev, what's going on? But there were people who were speaking for us, and it made it easier. When my father transitioned out of being a home builder where they built schools and neighborhoods and master plan, they were the first African American builders in the state of Arizona. Had the only business, talk about the business reality. But the city manager hired him to be the first human resource director. And at that point, he created all of these human resources centers, the one in Sunny Slope, John F. Long, and the Travis L. Williams that they renamed after him. Because the goal was to take care of the people. The goal was to take care of everybody there. So yes, there are hundreds of examples, and we don't have time for me to go into some of them as explicitly as I could, but I can tell you that the historical participation and leadership of African Americans in the city of Phoenix and in the state of Arizona has been a consistent thread of reality since the late 1800s and has currently continued to be that. And now we see leadership in East Valley. I have judged, two young ladies who are justice of the peace, one in West Mesa, one in Kyrene, in areas that are predominantly white. But they were successful because they were able to build coalitions. And in order for success to continue, we need to have participants who have been around for the long haul. Because what is good for our community has always shown to be good for America. and has always been good for Arizona. The changes that African Americans have helped to make throughout this state have helped this state be a better place to live.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right, Mr. Hamilton, we're going to switch gears a bit. So we talked about the influence of South Phoenix. So I want to hear a little bit more as far as in what ways do you think the Black community in South Phoenix has been impacted by systemic racism and discrimination, and what can be done or has been done to address these issues, especially as we're still experiencing it today within the workforce and organizations and everything?
Well, because historically, Black folks were still in America, there was still discrimination, yes, ma'am. And there was only one war fought during the Civil War in Arizona that can really be remembered, and it was fought down at Picacho Peak, and it was fought on behalf of the Confederacy. So we have some history that may not always be the very, very best. But the bottom line is, I think what really changed beyond the historical things about Arizona, and as Cody said properly, Black folk have always been here. My dad came here after World War II because he was mustered out of the service. He fought in World War II. They were sent out to Luke Air Force Base, but they had to go back between Luke and Williams. And so he simply decided, like a lot of other African Americans, to stay. There was nothing for him in Louisiana that he knew of, so he decided to stay here. My mom came here because she was tired of living in the segregated Texas and found that there was a little more freedom here. And so we have, I think, incrementally changed the very face of the place simply by our presence, by our willingness to integrate, if you will, but not so much so that we gave up who we were and what we believed in our own past. So ours has been a struggle of both cooperation and agitation. We are folks who I think are bred out of what has been called that good trouble. And we were people who helped create that good trouble here. My first experience politically was being involved in a march to the state capitol when I was in high school, of all things. And Dr. George Brooks and some other leaders, Lincoln Ragsdale, led the march. And I came very close, I think initially, I shouldn't say this in the presence of the police, but to be arrested because I tried to go through a police line, and the nice folks stopped me by not quite hurting me, but making sure I was stopped, and then let me go home. But we were trying to integrate the last segregated place in Phoenix that refused to accept the idea that there was a civil rights action coming, and a guy who owned the El Rey Cafe downtown Phoenix, before he would let us come in, after fighting it for 2 years, he shut it down and boarded it up. And I think he thought there would be a great pall over the city. And we simply surrounded this building and had a parade. We're glad to see him go. I think our change, again, I grew up in the housing projects. Now, when I grew up there, everything south of downtown was South Phoenix. Right. If you didn't live in downtown or West Phoenix or North Phoenix or Scottsdale, you lived in South Phoenix. So we all lived in South Phoenix. I grew up across the street from the Elks, where my brother runs the place over there. And to be absolutely correct, and I would never correct the judge because he is absolutely correct, James Brown made the song famous, but Funky Broadway was written by a group called Dyke and the Blazers. Because Richard Kaysen, who was one of the Blazers, was 2 doors down from my house. So we sung Funky. I remember when I could actually dance to it back in the day. But it is long. This is Broadway. Oh, this is Broadway.
I just got the wrong
No, they were talking about this Broadway. They were talking about the corner down there on 24th Street. Hey, lot going on down there. But I think when you look at. I mean, I was thinking the other day, and I was. Carl Sims was a member of the legislature. J.D. Holmes, Mr. Gray, who owned the filling station, Clovis Campbell Sr., Clovis Campbell Jr., Leon Thompson, Horace Owens, Sandra Kennedy, Carolyn Walker, David Armstead, Alfredo Gutierrez, Tony Abril, Armando Reese, Senator Landrum Taylor. These are folks who all pioneered out at my end of West Washington. The good work was being done downtown in the city of Phoenix with all you important folks. But we poor folk out at the state capitol trying to do what we did. We had the difficulty of bringing access, Medicaid, to Arizona. People talk about we were the last state to get a King holiday. That's correct. We were also the last state to get Medicaid because the folks in Arizona did not want to pass a Medicaid program because they didn't want to be responsible for taking care of on-reservation Native Americans because they didn't believe they were the real Americans since they had their own treaties. Why the hell should we take care of them, what they said at the Capitol? And yet the change to bring Medicaid access to Arizona did not come from a traditional source. We made the deal with this guy who was not supposed to like poor folk and dark folk at all, in Ronald Wilson Reagan. He signed the compromise that allowed us to bring Medicaid to Arizona. So we have, I think, a distinguished history. It is certainly replete with folks from this community, African American, Hispanic, but I had the privilege of serving with many of them. And the reality is what we ultimately surrendered ourselves to was that there was nothing that any community could gain, any ethnic community, that didn't benefit all ethnic communities in this community. Mm-hmm. But we also had to make our peace with the fact that there was nothing one community could gain if all of us didn't get in and pull the same way. I think that I look back at the King holiday and I think it's a great thing. I'm proud of that. I'm also proud of the fact that we were able to bring Medicaid to Arizona. But we also did something that has not yet come to total fruition. But when I grew up in this state, all money for local school districts were funded by local taxes. That's it. If you had a rich district, Madison, you had plenty of money. You had a poor district, you didn't. While that's not totally changed, the reality is we in fact did come along with a program that required the state to fund a basic level that all school districts in the state of Arizona would achieve. And what they couldn't generate with their local money, we funded with state money, with an incredible improvement. But it's not yet done. We have actually lost, in my judgment, a lot of focus on public education. I'm not mad about charter schools. I'm not mad about private schools. I'm not mad about parochial schools. But we have a lot of kids who still go to quote unquote public schools. And I do believe one of the things that we must make our peace with and continue to agitate about is that we have never wasted $1, not $1, educating a child. And as someone said, it is much easier to educate and train young children than it is to fix adults. And I think that's really where I'm hoping these good folks, these good young folks, all of you, continue to focus your efforts. The story of Arizona, I still think is a good story. Many people don't agree, but I absolutely do. But it is an incomplete story. The best part of what Arizona's legacy will be, you all were right. You all were right. It's ahead of us. And don't let anybody tell you any different. Don't let anybody tell you any different.
Thank you. And Mr. Johnson, how can South Phoenix community work together to build stronger relationships and partnerships with other communities? So as I say, is we're all stronger together. So how can we work together a little bit further and further our efforts in any of the organizations and communities at large?
I think through communication, through communication with each other. We have gotten stagnated where we're not communicating with each other. There was a time as South Phoenix continued to grow where you had block watch groups, neighborhood associations that all worked together. They would all unify together. If something was wrong with one portion of South Phoenix, the whole South Phoenix community would get together and go before the city council. They made the city council people responsible for those actions, and we've gotten away from those organizations because they knew the history, they knew how we got to where we are today, and they could see it, and they wanted to make sure that they continued to prosper. Those were our parents, our families that would get together and do those things, and so we have to have communications. One community could be much more prosperous than another community. However, if those two communities work together, that prosperity would just continue to move on forward. And so I think that we've lost a lot of the communication that we had with other communities, with other community leaders. There's no separation in age when it comes to the community. There's no separation in how you look, the light or dark, you know. We really got to get rid of that. And we've gone, to me, we've gone more backwards than we have forward. We've gone more backwards toward that really Willie Lynch theory with working with each other and separating each other, as opposed to how do we unify, work together to move forward, to see what's going to be better, because we're talking about making moves that's going to be beneficial not just to us, but to the generation behind us, our children, our grandchildren, their children, that we're setting that step and that final step for them to be able to do it. But it is definitely through communication. And the other thing that I would add with it is that we have to be humble. We have to be humble. And we've lost a lot of humility with not being humble. Humble means that we work together. Humble means that I'm not better than anyone else, but your problems are my problems. If I can resolve some of your issues, then that means my issues will be resolved. If I can sit down and talk to you and agree and disagree with you, but we continue to move forward, then that's going to make the community better. So what we have lost is a lot of that. And you've heard Mary Rose, Cody, Art, all talk about how the community used to get together and how everyone worked together. We have to get back to that. And I would say that the history, if you follow history, history will tell you that's how we got to where we are today. Those are the positive things that we were able to do. So I think we have to be humble, move forward, have humility, get rid of that Willie Lynch theory and stop putting people down, whether it's the younger ones, you know, and Willie Lynch, the young ones against the old ones, the dark one against the light ones, the house person against the slave person. You know, that Willie Lynch theory is still resolved. It's still going on. And it seems like we've gone backwards, because to me, it seems like we've fallen backwards into that, where we're not unified, young, old, I don't care who you are. We need to all be together, have one head, one community, and move forward. It's, you know, like the poem by HP started out, you know, we had to go back, you know, my people, my people. How much longer will this go on? And that's what I believe, you know, how the communities can unify.
All right, so we are going to be closing out right now. I wanted to go down the line as far as for closing remarks, and I actually had a personal question in regards to, what advice would you give as you're passing the baton? We talked about future leaders. We've talked about generations that are coming behind you all. What advice would you give to those leaders? And then just closing out, like in regards to how you would like to celebrate Black History Month and words of advice for that.
Okay. Advice, I think the best advice that we could give is examples we've set. The examples that we've set and some of the successes that we've had, and explain how we got there. You know, we didn't get there alone. When you become an elected official, as all of us have been, you know, you owe a lot to the community, and you have to turn around and give back and pull people up. And I would remind people that if you don't do that, you don't have a future. And I would remind them also, as Michael said, you got to stay humble. You know, you can't let things get personal. You just have to know that you're working for the community, and you've got to move it ahead. And by doing that, you have to coalesce. You have to, you know, make sure that you talk about things you want for the community, and then you go out and have action on them. You've got to make sure that you get the community to buy in to the things you want to do, but more importantly, you buy into what they want to do, because they elected you. And if you want to serve the community well and be successful in delivering for the community, you all have to work together. And I'd like to just real briefly thank the American Legion, Post 65, and the American Legion Post 41 down on Grant and 2nd Street are both very, very dear to our hearts. They were formed because our people could not join any other Legion or any other VFW or anything. And you know what we all said? That's okay, we'll make ours the best, and that's what you've done. So thank you very much for hosting us, and thank you, Ashley.
Absolutely, thank you. Judge Williams.
I'm sure you've all heard that when the tide rises, all boats float. One of the real missings in that statement is that there are a bunch of boats with holes in them sitting in there barely floating. And that if the rise of the tide takes care of all of the healthy boats, it's in turn sinking a whole lot of other boats. And we've got to make sure that we make this tide rise for all of us, but we've got to prepare our communities to rise with. And so much of what I believe we need to be looking at is, I can just tell you from being a city councilman, I followed Calvin Good, 22 years of being on the city council. He followed Morrison Warren, who was the first black city councilman. Councilman Good was second and I was third, Mike was fourth. The reality is that we knew who the leadership was in all of the communities. I spent more time outside of my office in my first year or so doing bus tours, meeting people, going to Chicanas por la Casa, going to Mary Rose Wilcox office, going down to the police department doing ride-alongs with the fire department and the police department. I was so intent on knowing who it was that I needed to ask to help me, because I knew I couldn't do it alone. And subsequently, if you looked at back, this was really a Rolodex, not your phone Rolodex, but because my cell phone at the time was a brick. It was about this tall, had a black antenna about this way, and weighed about 7 pounds. That we didn't have Rolodex. We had it in paper. You had to write it down. And I don't think that those of us that would be considered the older community versus those who may be the younger community, I don't think we have our names in each other's Rolodex enough. I don't think anybody that should be calling me is calling me. You know, maybe you don't want me to hear you tell you, that's fine. But I'm anxious. I want you to know what it is so you don't make the same mistakes that I did. And you can tell me what your plan is for the future. So I can help you get there. So I can call on the people that I still have in my now cell phone Rolodex and have them participate in the evolution of our communities. Because that's where we're missing. It's not the quality of the participants. We've got great people. We've got smart, educated, well thought of, prepared. Everybody's ready to go. But we just aren't together. You're not calling me. I'm not calling you. I'm not getting an email from you when you got something going on that I can come be a part of. That's why it's amazing to see all of you here on this Monday. You know, somebody got to you. And AP, thank you, and the whole organization. But until we start to bring all of those phases of our communication together, from the kids that we go speak to at schools, to the high schools that we go participate and give addresses to the colleges that we sit and help strategize, to the 30s and 40s and 50s who are looking at organizations that are trying to help people to build businesses and to create an environments where we equal the playing field. We got to call each other. Yeah. Mike was right, it's communication.
That's it.
You know, and if I were going to say that today, right now, everyone in this room is a part of Black history. You are part of Black history. Don't take Black history out of the classroom. Put all aspects of Black history back in, because it's what our world is made of. 450 years ago, when they started bringing us over here, when they were kidnapping us from Africa, we became part. This was home. We can't go back. Don't tell. I've had people tell me, go back to Africa if you don't like it. I wouldn't know where to go in Africa if I didn't like it. You tell me go back to Arizona if I don't like it, okay, cool. But the reality of it is, ladies and gentlemen, that we are all in this together. We are all in boats. Some of us our boats are perfect and others have holes in them. And if we aren't reaching out, trying to figure out how to help folks who are being evicted, who are losing jobs, who can't afford to be a part of the dynamic of our community, then we're not doing enough. And that means that this aspect of Black history is not a good one. But I believe that this is a great aspect of our community, that the timing has never been better, that the opportunity for all of us to do more is never, ever, ever been greater. So good luck to you all. Thank you for being a part of Black history, and thank you for allowing me to be a part of your day.
Thank you. Mr. Hamilton.
The good book says a people perish for a lack of vision. The thing that I think is most important, at least to me, is the vision that we ultimately can create for our community, that we can agree on what that vision is, and that we can get others to join us in the crusade to bring it to fruition. When the decision was made to do some major rehab on this post, we looked at it and didn't think we could possibly necessarily raise the money that was necessary. But there's this crazy guy named Mr. Powell, I won't mention just to give you the rest of his name, or Dennis Prince, or Jarvis Reddick, who said we need to reach outside the community and make sure that people understand this is an important part of their community, whether they actually live physically here or not. We had the good fortune to get hooked up with this guy named Jeff Goldner over at a small little company called Arizona Public Service. I work for them, by the way. And they decided that this is something that was important because they understood the importance of this in our community more than we seemed at that time to have been committed to it. And because we had a vision that they were able to glom onto and to help bring to fruition, we sit in a place that is, I think, now the cornerstone of meeting places in this community. I really do believe, because I am old and tired and fat, and I've lived a long time, that the thing that will limit us is our capacity to believe that we in fact can achieve that vision. But we can. It was once said that when Hannibal, going back, I'm not quite old as Hannibal, but Hannibal was going back to Italy, he decided rather than going the long way to cross the Alps. And he had elephants, and somebody said, "Sir, you can't bring those elephants across the Alps. It just doesn't work." And his response was, "We see no Alps. We see no Alps." And that's the kind of vision we have to develop and share and agree to as our common cause. I really do believe, and I've lived long enough to see enough change to believe that anything is impossible, what we can conceive and believe and join together to achieve. And it doesn't matter to me what color you want to talk about, what shade, where you're born. We live on this little crazy planet together. And if anybody believes that some of us are going to fail and the rest succeed, I want to tell them that they're wrong. I'm old enough to remember John Kennedy sitting in his chair in the White House, and he said that if we cannot help the many that are poor, we cannot save the few who are rich. We have a common cause. We have a common bond. We have a common legacy. We have a common hope. And I think we need to invest every bit of energy and genius and compassion and concern that we have into making sure our children have a vision that is without limits. And we are a part of leaving them a place that they can prosper in. Native Americans, and I'll stop with this, we're always wise to say that you do not inherit this land from your parents. You borrow this land from your children. We owe it to them. Yes. We owe it to them to have a vision worth having and to leaving them a place that they deserve and that they merit. If we do that, then folks who we will never see, never know, because we will long be planting flowers and making daisies with our bodies, will call us blessed because we had a vision to leave the place better than we found it. I think that is our common bond, our common cause, and frankly, I think that's what we owe those folks coming behind us.
Mr. Johnson.
I believe integrity is the key. If you have integrity, and I would encourage all young people that if you have integrity, then you have hope. You have a future. You have something to look forward to. You have something that those coming up behind you will see. Because if you live in integrity and you bring in someone else behind you, you will always be able to succeed. The problem is that we've lost a lot of integrity. A lot of integrity. You can't believe what people say no more. And we start to listen to people who hate somebody who they don't even know. And they told you they hate them, so now you dislike them. Person's never done one thing wrong to you, you don't even know them. But if you want to succeed, what I would tell young people is to have that integrity to make a decision. You don't have to always do what's politically right. You do what's right in your heart. Do what's right for the people. It may not be the most politically correct thing to actually do, but I tell them all the time, do what's right in your heart. Have integrity that you're standing for something. If you have integrity, people will follow you. They will listen to you. If you don't have integrity, nobody want to hear you because they're going to look at you and say, well, you said this last week. Now you over here doing this. That's not good leadership when you actually do that. When I was on the city council, I'm proud to see those young people that worked in my office, Michelle Franklin, Dora Lewis, to see Jeff come up, be the city manager, because if you have integrity as you're going, people see that. They respect that. Your actions leads to what someone behind you is going to do. When they see you have integrity, you humble, they will come up and do that. If you're not gossiping and talking about somebody else, then those will come up behind you. But we have to break that change. And it's not just a change with the older gen, it's a change that all of us are bound by, that we have to go back and look at. So I encourage young people that, have integrity with what you do. Stand for what you say you stand for. Mean what you stand, even if that means sometimes having to be out there alone by yourself. Stand there by yourself. And when you're doing the right thing and you have integrity, people will come up and support you. They will always be there. Martin Luther King, it's never too late, to make that change. And we have to make that change in order to be successful. But integrity, that's the key. When you have integrity, you're not listening to what everybody else says. You're making a decision based on what you know. You make a decision based on going back and talking to people to find out what they know, to make sure you're there. That's why I'm proud to see that. I'm proud to see the airport. I'm proud to see South Phoenix. We got the mall, Fry's, the shopping center. When people said the first thing we want out here when I first got elected to office is that we don't have a sit-down restaurant. We don't have a store that we can go shopping at. We don't have these things. And when you tell them that you're going to follow through and you give them that integrity, people will support. And you got to tell young people, you got to know that history to go back. I think all of us can go all along to talk about how South Phoenix got to where it is today and who brought South Phoenix to where it is today. And we continue to do that. But if you have that integrity and you're humble enough to do it, then you'll do it. Because no matter how big we get, no matter what jobs we may hold, no matter what title you may hold, in the end, none of that means anything if you're not doing something positive with it.
Thank you. That was good. Thank you so much. So can we give a last round of applause to our lovely panel for pouring into us today. We appreciate your time and just your efforts and just your knowledge and wisdom. So thank you. Just on a personal note, just thank you. Thank you for all you've done for our community and all of us at large. So with that being said, I will pass the floor over to Mr. Ron.
Thank you. Let's give a round of applause to Miss Ashley. Okay, do not leave your seats. There's going to be some important information we're going to be announcing up here shortly. But I just want to let you know that Pastor Stewart could not be here. He had engagement that pulled him away. Want to certainly thank our sponsors, Arizona Consulting Services. Mr. Charles Temple is here with us tonight. We also want to thank the Arizona Foundation, Salt River Project, Arizona Public Service, Andrew Coyne, Arizona Diamondbacks, and Blue Zones, who we're going to hear from Tomas Leon here very shortly. He's the CEO of Equality Health and Blue Zones. Certainly you can clearly understand that we're missing some key important people, which is Calvin C. Good. We can't talk about South Phoenix without talking about Calvin C. Good. We also want to show our love to Clovis Campbell. As we all know, he's experiencing a health crisis, and keep prayers for Clovis Campbell. And also want to acknowledge First Lady. We didn't get an opportunity, Della Reese, the better half of our commander, Jarvis Reddick, Della Reddick. And I'd also like to see if we can we've been having a little difficulty queuing up the video. If we can get that queued up with sound, and then we're going to bring former CEO of APS up, Mr. Jeff Goldner, to talk. He's the CEO. Chairman. Now he's the chairman. He's CFO? See, he served in many roles. He's still the guy, right? He's still the man. He still signs the check. But you know, he was the one that spearheaded the video we're going to try to attempt to play in the 85040 challenge. And as you heard from AP earlier, that he spearheaded that. So see if we can cue that video up, and then we're going to bring Jeff up, and then we're going to bring up Tomas to close us out.
One of the most famous and significant messages ever delivered by a human being was delivered by Martin Luther King Jr. in August of 1963. I was a little boy at that time, and I remember watching it on a black and white TV in my grandparents' living room in Coffeyville, Kansas. And he inspired me because his dream included me. His dream included you. His dream included people that weren't even born yet. I want to challenge you. This is your assignment. That you lift lower, smooth, and straighten, so that some of these statistics have been changed by 12 months from this day. Wherever you live, Paradise Valley, Moon Valley, Casa Grande, wherever you live, I'm giving you an assignment, because every one of you here can contribute. This zip code is the most historically African American and Latino zip code in our state. The median income in this district is significantly lower than any other zip code in this state. It is about $31,000, and for a family of four, that is either in the poverty level or it's just above it. The test scores in the public schools here are below average. Virtually all of the schools in this district are close to failing when the schools are tested. It has one of the highest crime rates in the city of Phoenix. It has more renters here than homeowners, than many other zip codes. It has the highest rate of formerly incarcerated people. It has one of the lowest rates of African Americans registered to vote. And it has one of the highest mortality rates of African Americans in the entire county. Even though we're only 5% of the population of the county, African Americans lead in 7 of 8 reasons why people die. The only one we don't lead in is suicide. 1 year from today, I want to see if you have lifted, lowered, smooth, and straightened some of the stuff going on in zip code 85040.
Wow. And the man that helped to spearhead that changing of 85040, let's welcome Mr. Jeff Goldner to the podium. Thank you.
Yeah, that was so powerful for me. I had the privilege to see that in person. I think that was right here. We were doing it right here, and just so much appreciated that challenge. APS, like South Phoenix, has a very rich history. Company can trace its origins back to 1886. Actually goes back. It was Phoenix Illuminating and Light Company in 1886. And to talk about the just differentness, the diversity in Arizona, we were actually founded by a Japanese immigrant in 1886. That is surprise. I mean, that surprises people to think that back then you still had that diversity. Our headquarters building used to be down on Lincoln. It's our old 501 building. And so we were headquartered as Central Arizona Light and Power in South Phoenix. So our history and the history of South Phoenix are tied together. On Dr. Stewart's challenge, one of the things that AP and I came up with shortly after seeing that, and I think it's important to think there are a lot of things that we can each do to fulfill Dr. Stewart's challenge. What we did is we said, we should get kids in South Phoenix exposed to the arts more. And so we created a program called Play It Forward. And the first thing we did was we went into South Mountain High School, academies at South Mountain, and we got a bunch of kids, and we took them to see an August Wilson play by Arizona Theater Company. And we did a reception, made sure everybody had a good time, and then the next thing we did is we took a bunch of middle school kids to see the Phoenix Symphony. Now, they were playing a movie in the background. They were performing the music to a movie, but the same thing. And I'll tell you, just the personal impact to me of being able to see those kids, to be able to be with them and experience something like that, it was powerful. And we made Baby Shark. That was the most bizarre one to come in, because I still can't get that song out of my head. But we did a Baby Shark play. And again, that was to get the elementary school kids engaged. And so there are a lot of things that we can do together as a community. And we're willing to support you. Happy to hear your ideas and just appreciate the opportunity to be here. Very powerful panel, so thank you for sharing that history.
What an awesome man. His heart is in the right place, and we appreciate you, Jeff, and all that you do and Arizona Public Service has done for our community. Next, I need you to lean into this conversation. We got some good information for you as I bring up Tomas Leon, the CEO of Equality Health Blue Zones. Let's welcome him to the podium.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, panel. Very inspiring and just words of wisdom to guide us into the future. I mean, talk about a bold vision and unity and communication and reaching back to our sage leaders and locking arms together. I have something very practical in terms of a big, bold vision to lock arms and move forward together. On your table, you'll see a large placemat with highlights of the assessment we've been working on for the past several months that focuses on what we can do to create and improve quality of life and longevity of life for people in South Phoenix. So as you may know, there's a life expectancy disparity of 14 years between someone that grows up in South Phoenix compared to North Scottsdale. That's unacceptable. And then you add 3 more years of loss of life because of the impact of the pandemic on the Black and brown community. That's 17 years. So we are focused and ready to lean into this bold vision and locking arms with you and on this Blue Zone Challenge. And it's all about improving quality of life, longevity of life, but we can't do it alone. We need to lock arms, public-private partners, local residents, and leaders, and take guidance from the past and deal with the reality of the present and take on this big, bold vision over the next 5+ years of improving quality of life and longevity of life. So we're here to lock arms with all of you. And AP, thank you so much for your partnership and support. Thank you all for being here. We'd love to come to the table and work together with you on and make this a reality for the people and the residents in South Phoenix. So I look forward to meeting with you and working with you. I know we've already had a lot of great momentum, but we do need to get all the support from the community to get behind this initiative. So thank you so much. Let's go out there and make create a new and brighter future that's more healthier for our community and the next generation. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all for being here today. We want to really thank our esteemed panelists. I have history with all of them, and I've viewed them when I hit the Valley in '85, and I was just surprised and honored when I got an opportunity to know each and every one of them. Thank you all for being here. AP, thank you for your vision. Thank you for Arizona. Aaron, for your vision, for being here. And we're going to continue to share information. Ashley, great job moderating. Enjoy the rest of your day. May God bless you all. May God bless the United States of America.